At the conclusion of Task Episode 3, it was revealed that Tom's team member was giving the Dark Hearts information, but who might it be? After Robbie and Cliff made a last-ditch effort to transfer the stolen fentanyl, Tom's team finally got a lead in this episode of the HBO limited series. Regretfully, they selected the incorrect individual to suggest a buyer. Cliff had contacted his former cellmate, who agreed to put him in touch with someone. Instead, in order to take the fentanyl for himself, this old friend broke into Cliff's house. Coincidentally, Tom and his task force, which consists of Alea, Lizzie, and Grasso, had also intended to break down Cliff's door that evening. One of Peach's co-workers, who had heard about the house invasions and was aware that Cliff was also participating, gave them a tip. The Dark Hearts mysteriously have all the same information, but Task is now just a few inches away from learning Robbie's identity. A deeper examination of the street before Task's altercation with Cliff's house showed that the Dark Hearts had also surrounded the house. All night long, they kept an eye on Cliff's home, perhaps anticipating his return. As soon as Tom saw this, he realized that the biker gang had somehow gotten their hands on what should have been private information about their lead. It is reasonable to assume that one of these Task individuals informed the Dark Hearts about the Cliff lead, considering only Tom, Alea, Lizzie, and Grasso were aware of it. Since all of these characters have been incredibly likable so far, this is a huge twist. For all the right reasons, they seem moral and sincerely motivated to solve this case. Naturally, this isn't the case for at least one of these people due to the Task twist. It's interesting that we learned the most about Alea, Lizzie, and Grasso's personalities in this episode. The possibility that any one of them might be somewhat loyal to the Black Hearts is hinted at. Alea was previously involved in an extremely risky domestic violence situation, as we discovered in Task Episode 3. We don't yet know how she handled it, and she hadn't even anticipated surviving that relationship. Alea might have established a silent allegiance by resorting to extreme means and requesting assistance from the Dark Hearts. In Task Episode 3, Lizzie also shared some fresh details about her past. As a state trooper, it is clear from this episode that her coworkers don't think highly of her. Lizzie's lack of confidence might have given her an excuse to seek safety and support from the Dark Hearts gang. They would demand something back, of course. Although Grasso is a capable and unexpectedly compassionate actor, there were a few questionable moments with his character in this episode. He had to abruptly end his bar date with Lizzie first. He then disclosed that he doesn't have the highest regard for police personnel in general throughout his otherwise heartwarming speech. Of all the possible suspects for Tasks, this one could be the most concerning. At first glance, Grasso's remark against dishonest police in HBO's Task Episode 3 didn't seem like much. If nothing else, it seemed like Grasso's chance to confront Lizzie's bullying coworkers. However, Grasso's statements have taken on a rather dubious tone once the conclusion discloses that Tom's task team include an informant. As a county detective, Anthony Grasso is the most likely of his comrades to have witnessed some really horrific incidents. He would have been highly aware of the corruption that occurs in the police force due to his position, which would have encouraged him to take up other allegiances. The Dark Hearts may appear to be a superior choice in the correct lighting. It's also suspicious that, unlike Alea and Lizzie, we got the least amount of real personal information about Grasso in Task Episode 3. He's a bit more secretive and private, implying that he might have something to hide. His comment that he suddenly needed to go meet someone was pretty strange as well. Of course, Task could just be dropping a massive red herring. Task Episode 3 did more than just disclose that Tom's squad has an informant. Finally, we were able to see which Dark Heart was providing Robbie and Cliff with information. It turns out to be Jason's wife, Erin. It turns out that Jason killed Robbie because Erin had been having an affair with Billy, Robbie's brother. Erin and Robbie came up with a scheme to get rid of Jason after Billy passed away. Robbie robbed drug houses when Erin gave him information about them. Robbie benefited from the more money, and Jason suffered as a result of the circumstance. Naturally, the situation was made much worse by the violent aftermath of Robbie and Cliff's most recent break-in. Cliff in Task is now known to the Black Hearts and Tom's task team. This implies that Robbie's involvement in these break-ins is just a step away from being discovered by the federal authorities and the biker gang. Tom is already aware that Cliff is employed by Waste Management, and he will soon learn who the man's closest coworker is. Naturally, Robbie and his family might receive worse news than a criminal arrest if the Dark Hearts figure this out first. Since Tom must now tread carefully around the potential informant, he will not be able to fully benefit from his task force. Additionally, an efficient investigation may be hampered by Tom's personal problems. The fact that Tom's wife was murdered by their adopted son, Ethan, is another noteworthy revelation of Task to Far. Ethan, who is currently incarcerated and awaiting sentencing, is suspected of having a serious mental illness and temporarily stopped taking his medication during the COVID-19 pandemic. At this point, he killed Tom's wife by pushing her down the stairs. In this task episode, we finally got to meet Ethan, and it's clear that he feels a great deal of regret for what he did. Tom couldn't bring himself to see his son in prison, even though he had previously defended Ethan. After suffering a head injury, Tom ultimately admitted in Task Episode 3 that he just couldn't forgive Ethan. His wife's passing was too agonizing. Task's upcoming episodes ought to focus on Ethan's sentencing, which will undoubtedly intensify Tom's emotional state. He has so far been able to keep his personal and professional problems apart, but in Episode 3, we've seen that tenuously break down. The 72-hour search for Little Sam and the potential informant Ethan will put a lot of strain on Tom. Thank you for watching. Please, subscribe.